Hello everyone, my name is Tom Colohue. This is your spoiler warning. Today we are talking the wonderful world of wrestling news. As always, I'm going to tilt that up ever so slightly, with plenty of focus on what is going on with Night 2 of the draft tonight. Our headlines include the new contract for Drew McIntyre, the new TV deal for AEW, WrestleMania in either Vegas or Minneapolis, Minnesota, the King of the Ring, the Money in the Bank, Vince McMahon still owning shares in TKO despite reports that he had actually sold them all. Not true. Gunter's next steps going into the Bianca Belair style push that is lined up for him. And I'll be sharing predictions for every single person who is currently listed as eligible for the draft tonight. There is one more thing that's going to happen. Tonight I'm going to show you all my hole. Just to be clear, webcam moves. It looks like that. See that massive hole? That's my ceiling right now. Yep, that is my ceiling right now. You all remember how I had that leak? Now you've seen my hole. And later on, I'm sure I'll show other people my hole as well, because what the hell is that? Essentially, the entire room smells like white spirit and bleach. They managed to fix most of the leak, as you can see from some of the foam. I say most. Yep. It's worse now. So, yeah. You know how I'm moving in 2 months? Yay. Yay. Ugh. A lot of people saying hello, welcome to the show, everyone. Sid says I hope tonight's draft isn't as disappointing as Friday night's draft. There were too many people staying on the same brand, not enough moves to other brands. You might be disappointed there. Ray says, who do you think was the best draft pick of night one who moved to another brand? I honestly struggle to remember anyone who did move to another brand. It was that disappointing overall. The best picks were the ones who stayed. Seth, Randy, of course, Bianca Belair. Ring Scoops, nice to see you, maybe in a little while. Hope you're good. Thank you very kindly for the bit. Every little bit of cheer is very well received and very welcome, and I appreciate you for that. Yes, Leon, rocking the red panda today. News says, hello Mr. Colohue, how are you doing today? Doing good so far, thank you. It is indeed gaping Jess Crush references Nia Jax, who was fired after going viral for that. One says, yikes Tom, good thing you have the new home coming in. Yeah, indeed. King Other says, hey Tom, I think Cody should hold the championship until next year's SummerSlam. We'll see how that goes. And Rob and Dave are angry at the water damage. Alex says, hey Tom, any news on Ilya Dragunov, Raw or SmackDown? I'll be doing my full predictions of everyone eligible today. And yes, that includes Ilya Dragunov, who I personally expect to go to Raw. Hello Razar. Joey says, hey Tom, do you expect the draft to be better tonight? SmackDown was really lackluster. Not really. There'll be a couple of big changes, but only a couple. Triple H not a big fan of the big moves. Clyde says, like button already smashed. Birthday push-ups already completed. Shout out to you, Tom, and all in the chat. Can I get a happy birthday shout out? Also possible subscription from you, Tom. I don't actually have, because I'm buying a house, I don't have like monetization that I can spend. It's awkward. So right now, unfortunately, I can't do that one. But bear in mind and remember it for when I'm in the new house. Also, happy birthday, mate. Many happy returns, and I hope you really enjoy your day. Ring Scoop says, finishing up my first year of graduate school in 2 weeks. Looking forward to having the summer off. Congratulations. Glad to hear it. Joey says, will anyone actually be drafted to NXT or is it clickbait from WWE? People will be drafted to NXT, but it won't be announced during Raw and SmackDown. We'll just see them pop up on Tuesday. Razar says, I really like the current roster and was hoping the draft wouldn't shake things up too much. I guess I got my wish. You did indeed. Ed says, I love the first night. Minor moves can make a big impact. Crush says Triple H is a long-term writer, so moving everyone doesn't make sense. Yes, most of the people he had, he already wanted exactly where they were. Alex says, any news on Uncle Howdy? Because I think Braun Strowman is on Raw tonight. Braun Strowman is there at Raw tonight. Personally, I expect him to go to SmackDown. Primarily because you're going to need competitors for someone else who's moving over there and will be built up towards Cody. Hello, Michael. Nice to see you. And Billy says, any update on the timing of AEW's media rights renewal with Warner Bros. Discovery? Does the recent issues with streaming play any role in a renewal, or are the rights fees largely baked in at this point? We do have news on that very shortly. King Azza says, Tom, do you think Cody was injured after the Cody Cutter spot? He landed on his shoulder. To my knowledge, he's fine. And Pete says, Carmelo scrap was fine, but on goes his losing run. Robin Dave says, do you see Jacob Fatu debuting a Backlash? No, not as of yet, but you never know. PWInsider are not sure either. Joey says, I wonder why Cedric stayed on SmackDown. Feels like he still won't be used. To be fair, it is a situation whereby with someone like Cedric Alexander, he might be used, just not necessarily in the way that certain fans want. I'm going to get to my first piece of news. I've already shown you my hole. Please do remember to hit that like button. We have 30 likes and 68 people watching. Every thumbs up guarantees more people watching this show. And honestly, when it comes to this news and when it comes to these predictions, I want people to see them. Drew McIntyre has indeed signed a new contract with the WWE. I told you he wasn't going anywhere. It is a very recently agreed deal, which essentially comes to a conversation which happened originally before WrestleMania. The Rock was actually directly involved with negotiations, and Drew McIntyre was made aware of several promises around the World Heavyweight Championship. Drew McIntyre actually beating Seth Rollins and then Damian Priest cashing in was part of the deal that was struck for the new contract. The original plan was for the cash-in to happen and Drew McIntyre to be nowhere near it. Okay? Drew McIntyre's contract does cover 3 years. It is very lucrative, very high paid, and it does include at least 2 championships and at least 1 sustained, strong championship run. We'll see how that goes, but I do think he's just guaranteed himself a win over CM Punk. Always a fun one. When it comes to Drew McIntyre, he didn't necessarily have the WWE over a barrel. He wasn't trying to be difficult in any way, shape or form. All reports, as I've rightly pointed out over the years, are now in agreement with me. He just wanted to ensure that he got a big championship moment. I would be keeping my eye on Clash at the Castle because, let's be fair, I laid out a timeline, and while that's not quite what we've seen for the for the contract announcement for the championship, we're exactly where I expected to be. Juan says, according to SRS The Enemy, who reported Camille has signed with AEW. Again, I've never had any news on Camille. That might be why. Crush shouts, yeah. Shifty says, Gunter to SmackDown per you yeet. And Bullet says, can you see Drew getting drafted? He will be drafted. I expect he'll stay on Raw, as will CM Punk. More on my predictions later. Joey says, has The Rock been involved with all contract discussions, or was it just Drew? There's not that many happening. He's been involved with Drew. I haven't had any word of any others yet. Chris says, CM Punk will gladly put Drew over. He never even wanted to win the AEW title. That is true, and in fact, he still has it. Joey says, I was kinda surprised Finn re-signed. I felt like he was the most likely to leave. I agree. I felt he was the most likely to leave, but that doesn't mean he was going to leave, so he's stuck with it. Shifty says, do you know the first pick tonight? Once we get to it, I'd imagine it'll be there. I suspect CM Punk or Drew McIntyre is going to be the first pick tonight. I have no issue with that. What can I say? That's a feud that's going to, quote-unquote, slap. Look at me trying to be stream. Down with the kids. Alex, I have Gunter and Ilya Dragunov on different brands. Not every dream match has to happen tonight. Second piece of news is about AEW's TV deal. The DAZN deal, which was pulled from AEW, was for countries where they had little to zero viewership of AEW, so it's simply a deal that did not enhance anyone's prospects. It does mean international options are now more available, and it does mean that AEW can bring something new to the table. That something new, of course, is the international licensing for AEW. Warner Brothers Discovery is still by far the most likely side to pick up AEW. Tony Khan has not been shopping around. He is focused on making a deal with Warner Brothers Discovery. As I mentioned previously, it's not going to be $1 billion deal. He does believe he's going to see an increase in the rights. However, when it comes to the ratings, there's a reason he's going on TV and making comparisons to Harvey Weinstein. The man needs viewership. Bit by bit and by and large, he is succeeding in getting what he wants. He is managing to get eyes on the product. Unfortunately, he's not managing to keep those eyes. And that means that he gets certain small bumps per show, but those bumps do not remain. The retention rate, as I flagged years ago, is still the biggest problem that AEW has. They can get viewers through the door. They can pop a rating, but they cannot keep someone until the next week. They simply cannot do it at this point in time. Thankfully, a lot of changes have been made. They're planning a lot more when it comes to live events as well, and a lot more spread out in the way that he's doing things. But Tony Khan is not endearing himself to his own locker room. The locker room are not happy at all with Tony Khan and some of the comments that he's made. Joey says, is Finn happier working under Triple H compared to Vince? Yes, he's one of the most open about the fact that he much prefers working under Triple H. Crush says, I think Finn will be given a renewed lease on his WWE life, perhaps going down like his NXT resurgence. I do think that time in NXT was a goldmine for him. King Azza says, do you think we will get Roman versus Punk at WrestleMania 42? Maybe, I'm not sure. There is an intention to get Punk and Roman Reigns together at some point, but it does depend whether or not it actually helps anyone lower down the card if they do so. P says, I called Triple H and apparently I can't be drafted due to me not being able to fight. That's a shame, P. Bullet says, AEW is not shown in Australia. They need to fix that and soon. Joey says, which PLE do you see the winner of the King of the Ring getting a title match? I don't. The King of the Ring no longer guarantees a title match. Silvic says, hello Tom, hope you're doing well. I want to know what are the plans for Imperium without Vinci. Essentially they want to re-debut Imperium somewhere new, in a very similar manner to when they first came up to the main roster, with Ludwig there as a mouthpiece. The issue, as much as anything that they had, was that they weren't using Ludwig Kaiser or Giovanni Vinci. Giovanni Vinci, I expect to go down to NXT, where he can rest up some of his achy joints. Shifty says, what? So no Ilya versus Gunter. Both of them have very long careers ahead of them, just not today. Khalid says, hey Tom, great to see you again. Welcome Khalid, nice to see you mate. Juan says, hey Tom, I agree TK seems overconfident that Warner Brothers will eventually give him what he wants, but I think he's overplaying his hand. I agree. Blair says, the hoodie is amazing. You might enjoy this, Blair. I am a red panda. I'm a red panda. Joey says, what is the point of winning it if the winner doesn't get a title match? The winner hasn't gotten a title match in about 24 years. Not sure what you're referring to, honestly, mate. I think the last person who actually got a title match out of King of the Ring was Brock Lesnar. I remember Kurt Angle winning and he didn't go anywhere with a title match. It didn't happen. Remember Edge winning. Did he get a world title match? No, he did not. It's not really a thing anymore. Buller says Tiffany should get drafted. She will, likely to SmackDown. Joey says, would a match of Ilya and Gunter be saved for a big PLE like SummerSlam or Bash in Berlin? Depends, first and foremost, what the actual matches and announcements and shows are when they're drafted together. Chris said, did Tony make people mad with his comments like in his own company? Yes, he did. Quite a lot of people were very unhappy with what he said. Roger Sims has pointed out, and sourced it as well, brilliant Roger, Jeremy Flynn takes charge of AEW live events. All Elite Wrestling has recently reshuffled his live events department, appointing Jeremy Flynn as the director of live events. As I did say a couple of weeks ago, there was a huge reshuffle happening in AEW to take a lot of the responsibility away from Tony Khan. This was largely led by Mercedes Money, who wanted to make sure that they were going to have a creative team when she arrived. Hence there is now a creative team in place and more changes are being made. Hector says, I think they could add Charlie Dempsey to Imperium. That could be a good way to call up Dempsey, put him in a good spot to succeed, plus it wouldn't hurt to be around Gunter. Fair. Spider-Boss says, hello Tom, I don't get the point of having DQ ending for the SmackDown women's matches, because they're building towards a triple threat. Also, in general, they just seem to want to end them quicker at the minute. It's awkward. Chris says Bryan Danielson finds Tony Khan, the one person he can't. Selvig says, is Drew Gulak out of WWE for the foreseeable future? Yes, it's a very, very similar situation. Very similar situation to Brock Lesnar. Joey says, it seems like new contracts have been getting signed faster with Shawn Michaels in talent relations now. There is a huge reshuffle of talent relations, essentially to get these things over the line, but it's more Nick Khan who is directly involved in these. Michael says, safe to assume GYV didn't sign with AEW? Why is that? It was a tryout match. Did they not impress? Luke says, imagine the disappointment if the recent Blackbird teasers led to the return of Retribution. Thank you, Zane. Appreciate you giving me that heads up. We do seem to have largely fixed the issues that we were having, but I can't guarantee anything, can I? Noob says, I'd like to see Damage Control get drafted to Raw because everyone is pretty much getting tired of Bianca Belair versus Damage Control since 2022. Well, while that is true at the moment, and very fair, I do think Jade Cargill versus Damage Control and Bayley versus Damage Control still has plenty of life. Shifty says, Ghost of Madness on Twitter reported Cody versus Roman was pitched for Mania again. Is this true? No. Crush, losing in your tryout match is always what's going to happen. You don't win a tryout match. Because then if you choose not to sign, or the company chooses not to sign you, you've just made someone else look bad. Why would you win a tryout match? Spider-Bell says a promo from Drew McIntyre has lasted more than any of the women's matches in WWE. True. And a promo from The Rock lasted longer than the main event of WrestleMania. Jess says, please tell me LWO or Legado are moving. Even Dominic can't heat that feud up. I would lean towards LWO moving, particularly given that Rey Mysterio versus Carlito seems to be next up. Joey says, do you see Robert Stone being used as a manager on the main roster? I think it would be a good mouthpiece for someone. Honestly, no. I think he's NXT for life. Shifty says, what are the plans for Io Sky? To wrestle. She will largely be working towards her championship once again, but they are giving her a bit of a break and a bit of a time off to sit in the background a little bit while they reheat her ready for that big moment. King Gaza says, I don't see Jade and Bianca winning a Backlash. It's too early to give them the belts. I don't think there necessarily is a too early, though it does mean that Damage Control can go on both sides. I personally think Bianca and Jade are more likely to be going on both sides. Spider-Ball says, I'd love to see what Dominic can do on his own now that Rhea isn't with him. Dominic is injured and he will not be getting too physically involved. Chris says Damage Control should stay on SmackDown because they have unfinished business with Bayley, which I agree with. Sovik says, is Dijak another guy who is NXT for life? Yes, I do believe he is. Glad to know, Joey. Glad to know. Yes, Zane, but that is the past. Next up, WrestleMania. And just to be clear, we have 87 people watching, 37 likes, 3 more likes, gets us up to 40, might even get us up to 90 viewers. Bit by bit, we're climbing. Bit by bit, we're climbing. WrestleMania was almost a lock, and you know how I love that phrase, to take place in Minneapolis, Minnesota next year. Now, when it comes to WrestleMania, that was not formally completed and locked in, despite being reported as the final destination many moons ago by places like PWInsider and Fightful. The WWE did not actually sign anything, and in fact they've been very disappointed, particularly Nick Khan, with the actual response from Minnesota. Now, as you know and as I've reported at length, and I don't believe it's been reported anywhere else, just to be clear, I think it's still just me, the WWE now get paid by the countries and the companies, etc., that are working in and around them. And when it comes to WrestleMania, different states bid different amounts. They were upset with the amount being offered by Minnesota, so they didn't commit to it and started to shop around. Las Vegas is willing to offer a hell of a lot more money because they know that if you bring people to Las Vegas gets very, very rich. The Undertaker misspoke when mentioning Las Vegas as a destination. He's been paying attention to the dirt sheets. What can I say? Nothing has been finalised. At the moment, Las Vegas is providing the highest bidder for WrestleMania. There is a hope that if they delay long enough, Sadiq Khan, here over in London, might put in an even bigger bid for WrestleMania. He's not going to. Okay? He's not going to. So I suspect that within the next month or so, we will see ourselves an announcement stating that WrestleMania will take place in Las Vegas. Noob says Asuka versus Jade Cargill will be an entertaining match to watch. They are planning matches like that shortly. Yes, they will. Shifty will have social media draft picks as well. Crushy is hoping to see Dijak become NXT champion. If you're a lifer, you're unlikely to win the belt. Spider-Man says, I wonder if Cora Jade can be drafted despite still being injured. She can if they want her. Razar says, do you think Roxanne is getting drafted? They said champions are protected, but does that include NXT? No, it does not include NXT. Roxanne is getting drafted. One says, I can't imagine the explanation TK told his locker room that he said it, only for controversy and ratings. Kind of risky in a way, to be honest. To my knowledge, there's been no discussion whatsoever so far. Joey says, I think Vegas is a better place to host Mania for tourism, and Minnesota seems boring and thus more in need of tourism. Spider-Boss says Las Vegas is a better place to have Roman versus The Rock at WrestleMania 41. Jess says if they do have a Minnesota Mania, won't everyone just be complaining about how cold it is again? Yeah, that's also one of the reasons behind it. King Azza says Undertaker said Cody gave him heel vibes. Undertaker will say whatever gets him a headline nowadays. Chris said you can't have a Minneapolis WrestleMania without a certain beast incarnate. You absolutely can. Razar says I really hope they announce a WrestleMania location soon. I was planning on going, but I need to know where it is so I can plan accordingly, which is fair. They should hurry up on that. And Spider-Boss says in which brand do you see Dragunov? All of my predictions will be coming shortly. We have 91 people watching, 39 likes. You see what happened there? We got 3 more likes, and just like that, the viewership popped. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. My rating's going up. What can I say? Maybe I should start posting ratings for spoiler warning. Put the ratings on Twitter and see if people really want to go on the attack. Chris says, any news on Def Rebel? No, I've never had any information on that one, to be honest. I know that there are reports now that the WWE aren't happy, but it's more that the fans aren't happy, so the WWE are exploring their options. King of the Ring. A King of the Ring is upcoming in Saudi Arabia. That means I will not be watching, but I'm very interested to hear your opinions on who is going to be winning King of the Ring. My predictions are fairly easy to work out. I've mentioned them previously. Let me know in the chat what yours are. I have Dakota Kai being Queen of the Ring, or in fact, King Kota. She is, after all, captain of Team Kick, and honestly, I just think she's in a position right now where they can strike, and they can strike hard. Now, I see a lot of people have said Gunter when it comes to the idea of King of the Ring, and I think that's a good shout. I think there's a lot of strength there. There's a lot they can do there. I'm leaning towards Jey Uso. I think having taken the loss to Damian Priest, Jey Uso needs to be a little bit reheated. Knowing that the Bloodline will no longer be taking the fight to Jey Uso, and Jey Uso is firmly out of the picture, the first pick on Raw after all, I do think Jey Uso will be the ideal pick to be King of the Ring. So I have Dakota Kai and Jey Uso. And in fact, this seems an ideal point to tweet about that. But in fact, I'm not going to stop and take pictures. I'm going to do that in a bit. That would be silly. No, Shifty, I'm not going to Clash. I prefer to watch the shows from home. Kush has Gunter and Dakota Kai. Jess has King Dominic. Spider-Boss says, headed to Backlash. I like more the Damian Priest versus Jey Uso rivalry. AJ versus Cody doesn't connect to me. It is starting to look like no championships will change hands on Backlash, which is why I'm thinking the Women's Tag Team Championships will. Razar says, Gunter and Dakota are my picks for King and Queen. Chris says, how would Gunter lose the tournament match? He might not be in the tournament at all. Did we consider that? Spiderball says, I think Jade Cargill would win Queen of the Ring and Jey Uso as King of the Ring. And Bailey says, there's a talk about London seeking WrestleMania getting any attention in the UK. Is this just an attempt to pick up votes? It's an attempt to pick up votes. The WWE are paying attention to it and are open to making it happen. Also, in many ways, because Sadiq Khan has said what he said, Triple H wants to sort of help the guy get elected. Danny says, hello Tom, do you think we could see a few more NXT superstars be drafted tonight? We absolutely will be doing so. Hector says, I think Gunter is going to look at Ludwig Kaiser and say, if you don't do better, you'll be next. So I'm calling my shot King Kaiser. Ronnie says, last time I watched a PLE from Saudi Arabia, it was about 95% males in the seats. Last one I watched was the Greatest Royal Rumble, the first one. Since then, I've been not watching them in protest. It's a silly protest, I know, it's a very small protest, but it is where we are. One says Gunter and Dakota. Khalid has Gunter and Dakota as well. Chris says that'd be weird. He declared for it and then he doesn't get invited. Maybe that could be a storyline. Might well be. Razar says, actually, now that I think about it, Drew can win King of the Ring. The other Mike has Ricochet and Tiffany winning, which is a very different list than we've been seeing so far in the chat, so I appreciate for that one, Mike. Shifty says, do you have any names to go to NXT that are on the main roster? My predictions have gone live on Wednesday. So Wednesday, PLE Wednesday, there was a lot of predictions for the draft there. We will be going through everyone who is eligible tonight as well. Spider-Boss says, I remember last time there was a title change on Backlash was when Ray and Dominic won the tag team titles. Backlash 2022, 2023, there were no title changes. Shifty says, what's Braun doing tonight? At the moment, he's just backstage. We'll see how it goes from there. Chris says he is King Ricochet after all, an upgrade from Prince Puma. Danny says, when is the King of the Ring tournament due to take place? In Saudi Arabia. So, yeah, a couple of months. Hector says, I haven't watched a Saudi show since they squashed The Fiend. That was all I needed to see to never invest my time in a Saudi PLE again. The show in which that was happening, I instead went to a pub in London called World's End with Stephanie Chase. And we just had a drink and talked about wrestling. Good times. Very good times. Thank you, Crush. It's at the end of May, so about a month away. Appreciate the exact timing there. There are reports going round, and I need to do a bit of a rumour killer here. There are reports going round that Vince McMahon has sold all of his shares in TKO. This is not accurate. His shares are listed for sale. He is intending to sell his shares. However, at this point in time, what is going on with my hair there? they have not been bought up yet. There is still a lot of movement in place before we need to go there. So right now, while Vince does not have any voting power in TKO, and he does plan on selling off his shares, he has not yet done so. His shares have been for sale since September, but it seems like the shares in question have not attracted a lot of buyers, because it's also true, since September, that Nick Khan has had his shares up for sale. Now, Nick Khan is not planning to leave the WWE. Nick Khan is still very much in a very healthy employment, but is looking to sell his shares for other products and other options as well. I suspect Vince McMahon may be trying to tempt Nick Khan into a continued working relationship. I wouldn't find this particularly strange, given how lucrative their previous working relationship has been. This would involve Nick Khan working on something else via funding, but would still be in place of Chief Financial Officer and Chairman of the WWE. There is no intention, to my knowledge, of Nick Khan leaving, but Vince wants out, he wants out big, and he wants to start something brand new to try and clear his name by making people watch and forget about everything else. That's the intention. I don't think it's going to work. We have just broken 100 viewers and reached 113, 46 likes, 4 more gets us to 50. If you're just joining, please remember to hit that like button. One thing I do want to update everyone on, yes, I have a new house coming, and I need to point that out. In about 2 months, we'll be moving to a new spot. There's a reason for this. There's many reasons for this, in fact. Firstly, I can afford it. I want to live with my family. But also, let's have a look at my hole. See that? See that big one? That's my ceiling right now. That is my ceiling right now. Do you remember that leak I had? Yeah, it's a big bastard. So I'm looking for a change. So if you can just leave a like, that will genuinely help me get into finer places, a finer establishment, with which I can, you know, not live under a giant hole and, you know, sit in a room that smells of white spirit. Now, it's all white spirit. I'm fairly well ventilated here. But if I do pass out, please do let me know, because I might forget. And let Ed know so that he can call an ambulance. I'm glad you've all seen my hole. That was important to me to show to you. 50 likes. Lovely. My hole's getting likes. I like it. Sparrowbell says, I missed the tweet promoting spoiler warning, then entered into Twitch to watch spoiler warning. By all means, mate. I did not post a tweet promoting the show tonight. I do most of the time, but every now and then I don't do an announcement tweet, and I just see how many viewers we get. Because the hope is that while Twitter is bringing people to the show, will they stick around? Will they come for another show if I'm not announcing it every time? So honestly, so far, the fact that we've just passed 100 viewers, things are going well. It's the best way to really see where I'm at right now, you know? Ronnie says, looks like the WWE would not have the King, Queen of the Ring in Saudi Arabia, given how regulations are concerning women. They actually are having them in Saudi Arabia. Joey says, do you know why Nick Khan is selling his shares? I think I just covered that one. Juan says, hey Tom, according to SRS, the enemy. You like that, don't you? MJF had surgery recently, delaying his return. Do you believe Ospreay will take the title off strong to just drop the whole angle that was planned for his return? Really not sure. I don't know necessarily if that was the plan for MJF's return, but I'm confident that Will Ospreay will be taking on Swerve at Wembley. So I kind of think he might take the championship and then do a merger. Champion versus champion. Ryan says it's still going to be hard to believe when it actually does happen. Chris says Nick Khan is trying to make as much money as possible. Aren't we all? And Chris also says, is it wrestling related or another form of entertainment? He's exploring some options. Joey said, did the roof collapse? A lot of people reacting to that one. David said that's a safety issue. Joey also saying that looks dangerous. Jess saying quite rightly, Tom showed his gaping hole, so like the video. Yeah, essentially the leak was that bad they had to cut a chunk out of the ceiling. And that's not going to be repaired until next weekend. The idea was they needed to give it room so that everything could dry, and then hopefully it wouldn't rain. And you'll never guess what it did today. Lots and lots of rain. So it's all come through and filled a bucket up, which is lovely, which I've got down there. I wouldn't have been able to do the show if it was still raining, because you'd have heard the It's literally 2 inches from my foot right now. Now, I would do a kickoff. I would start chasing and talking to people, but I'm leaving. I'm only here another 2 months. If you think I can survive another 2 months, give me a hell yeah. No, Danny, I do not watch Impact Wrestling. Something's got to give, and Tom needs his sleep. Spider-Boss says, do you think we still could see Becky versus Liv at Backlash? I do, honestly. I think that's certainly a possibility. And they do, after all, need to fill a card, and at the moment, there's not a lot. Bailey says, is there any talk about what Vince McMahon will do after his non-compete runs out next year? Lots of talk about it. Spider-Boss says, Undisputed Kingdom and Adam Cole certainly need MJF's return. So far, Undisputed Kingdom hasn't worked. Razar said, at least you don't have to pay for it to get fixed. I wouldn't anyway. I'm renting this place. And yeah, I'm not the happiest with the response because I've been raising this one for a while. But you get what you get. Shifty giving us a hell yeah. Brad gives us a hell yeah. Jess, David, Zane, Ronnie, Leon. So many hell yeahs. Absolutely love it. Shifty says, do you believe in Joe Hendry? I do now, and I think quite a lot of people are going to after what he's just done. Juan says, hell yeah, and I got an ad. Darn. We are still supposed to get ads as they come through. I can usually see when I've got ads, even though it's not visible to me. I see that the viewership tanks ever so slightly. There's a little drop in viewership as we do it. So, yeah, it's not a bad spot to be in. I lose 10, maybe 20 viewers, and then over time I build back up again. And that's why, fortunately, the likes are really important. Isaiah says, is there any plans for WrestleMania 41 moving to Las Vegas next year? I covered that one about 10 minutes ago. Isaiah, if you just want to pop back, you're going to enjoy it. Gunter. Plans are for Gunter to move to SmackDown. That seems to be what they're aiming for at the moment. That is certainly my prediction. But wherever he lands, I'm being told he will receive the Bianca Belair push, which means he's going to the top and he's going there fast. Plans are being fast-tracked for Gunter versus Cody Rhodes, and it does mean that there is a high chance that we get a lot of people being crushed en route to that happening. If Ilya Dragunov, for example, does take on Gunter, it might go differently this time around. Gunter has effectively moved on from the Intercontinental Championship because he's going straight into the main event scene, and the WWE have no qualms whatsoever about him being the World Heavyweight or Undisputed WWE Champion. So he'll either be undisputed or the one that disputes it. The last thing I really want to dive into is going to be quite substantial and time-taking. I was going to say time-taking. That's a phrase. I'm going to go through everyone who is eligible to be drafted during night 2 of the draft tonight. Literally everyone, every faction, every group, all of it. And I'm going to tell you if I think they're going to Raw or SmackDown. Now, I won't have much time to then let you guys respond and respond to your responses. No, Danny, once again, I do not watch Impact Wrestling. I don't have time to watch all of it, and I like New Japan more. So if you'd like to jump in the chat and let me know what your thoughts are as I read each person out, I would very much appreciate that. Please don't expect me to respond and read out too many, but I'd very much enjoy it. DIY are first on the list. Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. I suspect they stay on SmackDown. They're doing very well at the moment. I'm enjoying their work, and I do think they're still part of an overall rebuild that is happening for the tag division, that tag division that desperately needs it. Yes, Spider-Boss, I do see Roman as a free agent because he's not available for the draft. He will be coming back at some point, and I definitely see him being drafted at that point in time. I genuinely thought they were on SmackDown. Okay, I see them moving to SmackDown then. I phrased that incorrectly. I must be getting confused with New Catch. Yes, I see DIY moving to SmackDown. Thank you. Apollo Crews. NXT. Just NXT. I would love to say that he's lined up for any sort of push. I'm glad he wasn't released. The WWE have no major plans for him. Still in NXT. Braun Strowman, SmackDown. Braun Strowman staying with SmackDown largely so that I think he gets fed to Gunter. I really do. I think along the way, Braun Strowman gets a little bit mauled. I wouldn't hate it. I would not hate it. Jess says throw DIY and SmackDown to job to Pretty Deadly. Well, that's not going to happen, but Pretty Deadly might have some movement that I'll talk about later. Kutch thinks Apollo Crews is just boring. Unfortunately, it just hasn't happened for Apollo Crews. I'd say Vince has tried. I don't necessarily think Triple H has. Bronson Reed is up next. I see him on SmackDown. I suspect this is why we're building towards an Intercontinental, championship match with Sami Zayn. The idea seems to be that might be a match we get at Backlash. Going to be a lot of championship matches at Backlash, but it does mean that Bronson Reed might have done pretty much everything he can on Raw. There is no plans to really elevate him too strongly. So logically, Bronson Reed being fed to Gunter is another thing worth considering, but also Bronson Reed versus Cody Rhodes has been mentioned just to keep the life going. He's also potentially United States champion and can work a little lower down the card against people like Rey Mysterio. Candice LeRae, Indy Hartwell, SmackDown. DIY, of course, I've mentioned there is moving. Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell moving with them. Chelsea Green and Piper Niven sticking to Raw. Chelsea Green is doing very good work at the moment. Piper Niven is going to get opportunities going forwards. The tag team division for the women is expanding. They just essentially need to get those championships on both shows pretty consistently. Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill seem ideally placed for that. And there has already been talk of Jade Cargill throwing Piper Niven around. I doubt this surprises anyone. Devils, at this point, there are no plans for anyone else to join Imperium to my knowledge. Danny says Logan Paul over to Raw. Nope. Didn't say that. Didn't say that at all. CM Punk staying on Monday Night Raw. CM Punk essentially is balancing out Randy Orton. There is a balancing act that's lined up between the two of them. And that just means that wherever one goes, the other one will swap, etc., etc. The Creed Brothers. SmackDown. Chad Gable's already been moved, hasn't he? Chad Gable's already been moved. Chad Gable was on Raw. Chad Gable's staying on Raw. The Creed Brothers. Raw. These are my predictions, guys. Just to be clear, I'm reading these out and I'm saying where I think they're going. Occasionally I forget things. Creed Brothers. Raw. Damage Control. Staying on SmackDown. I don't doubt for a moment that Bayley versus Dakota Kai is coming. Damage Control need to stay on SmackDown primarily because I suspect they're going to lose the tag team championships, and that means Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill are going to be off traveling. They need tag teams to hold it down, and they need people to work with Bayley. Kairi Sane, Asuka, Dakota Kai. That's even before you get to a rematch of Io Sky. Also Nia Jax, as we've mentioned previously, but it does all make sense. Q43 says, hello Tom, do you know if the Speed Championship is going to be defended on shows other than Speed? That's not the intention, but it will happen eventually. Spider-Boss says, do you think Jimmy Uso goes to SmackDown? Personally, I think he goes to Raw. Razar says, I think we're getting the Damage Control triple threat at SummerSlam. I don't think that's impossible. There has been talk of a Damage Control triple threat for a while. Drew McIntyre, staying on Monday Night Raw. He has become a vital component of everything on Monday Night Raw. With Seth Rollins injured and with CM Punk injured, they are really lacking top names there. Drew McIntyre is going to be a very important cog until CM Punk returns. The Final Testament, carrying Cross, AOP, Scarlett and Paul Ellering. NXT. Back to NXT. The WWE are intending to have Scarlett involved in more wrestling matches, but they're not happy with the return that they've received whenever she has wrestled on live shows, and that one time she wrestled on SmackDown. Scarlett going back to NXT to develop is a good plan, and it means a year or so forwards, they can call them all back up again. The AOP need a little time to get back used to the WWE system. They've been out for a while, so I do see a change there. When it comes to Karrion Kross, he just needs a change. A change is as good as a rest, and I think he desperately needs one. Danny, we will be getting to that, don't you worry. I've mentioned people before like Josh Briggs, Roxanne, Ilya. I see them all being called up. Giovanni Vinci, staying on Raw. Now, I think it's possible he goes to NXT, but I don't see him going where Imperium go. Imperium, that being Gunter and Ludwig Kaiser, SmackDown. I think Gunter is moving to SmackDown based on what I've been told, and that he'll be sort of carving his way through everyone en route to Cody Rhodes. Gunter versus Cody Rhodes is a match that the WWE are eager to make happen. It does depend whether or not he's saving himself for The Rock, but Gunter is going to be waiting. Bailey says, do you ever see WWE drafting lower card talent to main event in the future? Nope, that is not a brand. Danny says, what about Roxanne's championship? Would it be handed in? They will cross that bridge when they come to it. Jade Cargill. SmackDown. Staying on SmackDown. I've mentioned in my predictions previously, I kind of had Jade Cargill going to NXT, which means she'd need to become a tag team champion in order to sort of hold over the whole thing. But yeah, Jade Cargill, for now, staying on SmackDown. With Nia Jax moving over, with Kabuki Warriors, there's a lot for her there right now, but there won't be by the end of the year. Judgment Day, Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio and JD McDonough. You will note no Damian Priest because he's not eligible. Staying on Raw. Again, there is a lack of top names at the moment. Finn Balor could fill that spot. Finn Balor versus Drew McIntyre has been mooted as a possibility, though there are no World Championship plans for Finn Balor in the future. Sorry guys, my door's just gone. Bear with me. In a word, junkie. Yeah. He apologised. He was clearly so out of it that he was very nice about it. So yeah, that's the thing that just happened. Hector says, wait Tom, you've said AOP has been gone for a while. I thought they'd been signed for over a year before they debuted. Yeah, they won't. Spider-Boss says, I think Cross hasn't got much of a chance in WWE. Cross just doesn't connect. He doesn't get booed. Yeah, he doesn't connect. And I do feel time in NXT would help him reconnect in the way that he did when he first came back. Razar says, SmackDown is a show that doesn't have a lot of wrestling. So Gunter going there is interesting since his thing is having good, long matches. He will get his chance. It will be a slightly smaller roster. Spider-Boss says, Cross just doesn't connect with fans. NXT is the place for him. And Neeb says, let's hope Kairi Sane won't get injured by Nige. Moving on. Caden Carter and Katana Chance. I see them on SmackDown largely because we've got Kabuki Warriors, but outside of them, we actually have a very small amount of actual tag teams. Logically, we still need a women's tag division, even if they're not necessarily always challenging for the championships. Caden Carter and Katana Chance are ideally placed for that. Kevin Owens. I have him going to Raw. Once again, there's not much going right now, and it's just one of those. Kevin Owens always moves. Always. Wherever he is, whatever he's doing, he always moves. So I have Kevin Owens going to Raw. Bailey says, does Baron Corbin move up? He already has. Sid says, Matt Hardy said in his YouTube podcast his wife Rebby might wrestle in TNA against Eddie Edwards and his wife Alicia. Well, Matt Hardy does tend to say that. Legado del Fantasma I have going to Raw. We don't need them on SmackDown anymore. We've had a lot of faction warfare. We need to all move on with our lives a little bit. Logically, that's just much, much better for everyone involved there. Much better for everyone involved. Legado del Fantasma moving to Raw. The LWO staying on SmackDown. The LWO staying on SmackDown. Rey Mysterio versus Carlito is next up. And after that, there are a few more tag teams that they could get involved with. I think Rey Mysterio is going to have a very boring year. Very boring year. Naomi staying on SmackDown. They haven't actually started her story yet. This is only the beginning of it just after WrestleMania. So we're starting to kick in as regards the idea of moving to Raw. She hasn't really had enough time to do anything, so I would keep her there. Natalya stays on Raw. She's needed there. She's desperately needed. New Catch Republic fucks off. New Day, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. I have them on SmackDown, largely to just give some credibility to the tag team division. And it's a young tag team division that desperately needs a few people at the high level who can really show what they're all about and really be a go-to to essentially assure people that they're doing things right. Odyssey Jones, drafted to Raw and never appears. Martin says, majorly late but wanted to say hi to all before I zip back to the beginning. Smash that like. Appreciate that, Martin. Chris says, KO on Raw and feuding for the World Heavyweight Championship. KO versus Drew. Leon says, Randy and KO are going to be tag team champions by the end of the year. I'm calling it. Spider-Ball says, I see Charlotte staying on SmackDown. Me too. And Martin says, night one of the draft was awful. Finished saying what was the point in announcing a draft, to be blunt. Sid says, Darby Allin was injured in New York City recently. Joey says, where do the New Catch Republic F off to? Anywhere but where I can see them. At least one of them. Eric says, Chelsea Green for Money in the Bank and then Women's World Champion. Chris said, does Gallus get called up? Probably. Coot says, thoughts on Pete Dunne? Great wrestler. Good guy. Spider-Ball says, Roxanne Perez to Raw. The Raw Women's Division needs new faces. I do think Roxanne versus Bayley is more likely going to be where we start. Pretty Deadly, I have staying on SmackDown. Again, I have New Day moving over because it's going to be a young, quite raw tag division over on SmackDown, and I do think Pretty Deadly are ideally placed to be involved in that. A-Town Down Under versus New Day will be an easy go-to that they can use pretty much whenever they want, but having teams like Pretty Deadly and DIY in and around that is a big help as well. I do think while DIY take on A-Town Down Under, New Day versus Pretty Deadly, with New Day then taking on A-Town Down Under, etc., etc. ad nauseum. New Day likely winning those championships so that they can then take on DIY and Pretty Deadly again, etc., etc. Shinsuke Nakamura moves to SmackDown because, god damn it, he's had a rough time on Raw. He desperately needs a new location. I have him moving to SmackDown. Tegan Nox, let's move her to SmackDown. She's a bit of a heel at the moment. Let's have her get at least one match against Bayley. I don't think she's got much chance, unfortunately. Joey says, do you see Ivar moving down to NXT until Eric is back? Yes, I do. Chris thinks if Roxanne Perez gets called up, she should go to SmackDown. Chris says, Pretty Deadly versus New Day would be excellent. Jess says, Pretty Deadly squashing DIY will be cinema. And Crush has Ivar moving to SmackDown. Spider-Boss says, I think the Street Profits staying on SmackDown and win the tag team titles. Yeah, they're on the next one that I've got to list. Stefan Welcome says, Nakamura is washed, which I don't think is how that works. I think he's gotten a lot of losses recently and it's affected his overall aura. That's true. But to call someone washed because of the booking is not the same thing. Bailey says, any thoughts about Tegan Nox joining with Dakota Kai in Damage Control? Maybe, but why? Like, would you like to rejoin a woman who's betrayed you at every opportunity? Yeah, sure. Just quit wrestling at that point. The Pride, Bobby Lashley, Street Profits and B-Fab stay on SmackDown, primarily to continue the work with the LWO, who desperately need some new blood and some new challenges. Carlito being a heel does open up some options, particularly if the tag team side, and I'll just read the names, Cruz Del Toro and Joaquin Wilde leave the LWO with Carlito. That means we could get Carlito, Del Toro and Joaquin Wilde against the Pride as well. So there are some options there for it. And Tiffany Stratton, the last name in the list, stays on SmackDown. You may note that I've not given many changes there. Not many changes at all. If I go through the list, it's essentially DIY moving, Bronson Reed moving, Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell moving, Giovanni Vinci moving, Kevin Owens moving, Legado moving, New Day moving, Shinsuke Nakamura moving, and that's it. The only names left that haven't been drafted at this point, Alexa Bliss is not back yet. Note that I said yet. There are plans for her return being put together as we speak, largely involving Bo Dallas. Carmella, also training for a return. Charlotte Flair still injured, will be on SmackDown when she returns. Jimmy Uso is injured at the moment, he will be on Raw. Rhea Ripley will remain on Raw, and The Rock will be wherever he damn well pleases, because he's The Rock and he's allowed to do that. Spider-Boss says, I thought Maxine would go to NXT. Seemingly that's not the plan at the moment. Stefan says, what do you think Logan Paul is going to do on Raw tonight? I just think he's going to say, hi guys, I can't be drafted. Let's have fun. And then he'll end up in a match. Spider-Boss says, Tegan Knox to NXT. She hasn't got much of a chance on the main roster. I think she'll have even less of a chance, unfortunately, on NXT. Chris says Shinsuke at NXT would be based. Jess says, didn't Tegan just hurt her knee again on the UK tour? Maybe, unfortunately, that this doesn't work out for her. Joey says, is Shinsuke just a veteran guy now putting everyone over? Yep. Moxie says, Tom, when Cody versus Gunter happens, do you see Gunter winning the belt? Assumption based on a prediction. Martin says, if he moves, what was the point in announcing the moves after SmackDown went off the air? To be fair, draft moves are not finalised until after Backlash. They could still move people back. Bullet Ryan, I've spoken about NXT call-ups ad nauseum in there as well. Shotzi, Spider-Boss is injured at the moment. Joey feels Tegan would be better in NXT. Chris says Roxanne Perez said Bayley is like her big sister. Ishii says, I heard Braun Strowman is returning tonight on Raw. Braun Strowman is backstage. I'm not sure if there's been any talk of him actually appearing in front of cameras. Moxley, probably not going to do that. Chris says the draft was primarily to balance the rosters a bit, right? Yep, just give a couple of people new opportunities. David says, could Tegan Knox be one of those that is sent to Marigold to work there for a few months? Yes, if she wanted to go. Hector says, I never would wish injury on anyone, but Eric getting hurt may have been the best thing to happen to Ivar's career because they've let him showcase what he can do, and it's been quite impressive. He would have had more opportunities as a tag team wrestler as well. Chris says, Charlotte Flair was recently sprinting. Yep, she's still not back. Joey says, do you see Lyra staying in NXT? For a little while, yes. Ryan says, I can see Blair Davenport getting called up. We'll see how that one goes. Gomar says, yo, Tom and chat, how's it going? Yes, see you, Gomar. And Eric says, any news on when Bo re-debuts? I've already reported it in depth as to when the most likely debut is for Bo Dallas. Tony says, as much as I see Damage Control as a faction, I fear that they will have the New Day separation moment. Kyrie and Io could be the two getting drafted to Raw. Moxie says, maybe Gunter can run through the whole LWO. He can run through anyone he wants, really. Joey says, do you see them saving Braun for Bo Dallas's new faction? No. Sid says, I need to train my arm to switch the chat. Oh, wow, not going to do that. Not reading that out. That's rude. That is cruel. Jess says, if Valhalla pregnant and off TV, what's stopping Michael Cole from wearing the deer horns on TV and being Ivar's manager? Many things. Many things. We've been live for 53 minutes. We've covered plenty of news and plenty of predictions, but I am going to wrap it up there. We will be live once again on Friday, and there'll be plenty of new content coming your way in between. But I just want to say a massive thank you to all of you for joining me, for keeping me company, and for keeping these shows going. I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon. And thanks for looking at our hole.